One of the biggest challenges when using a bait boat is how to position it accurately and drop a rig exactly where you want it. It's easy to drive a bait boat to a far horizon marker. It's easy to judge the left and right, but the further away you're dropping the rig, the harder it is to judge the range. So what are the options to get more accuracy? So I've put my marker out on a spot and I've wound it back right onto the back edge of a known plateau. The bait boat's all ready to go, so we're going to have a go at driving that out and dropping it right next to that marker. The marker float is at about 60 yards and I'm going to drive the bait boat from here out to that mark. And what I want to do, I want to drop that rig right next to that marker, and then I know I'm going to be fishing right in the transition zone, right where the gravel spot changes from bang hard to the slightly softer stuff, because that's a zone where the carp like to feed, around the edge of the spot. Right, let's grab the marker float and we're going to bang it out on a spot. I haven't got this spot clipped up at all. I'm just going to whack it out beyond the spot. That's gone well beyond. I'm aiming for a couple of trees. There's 2 V trees in the distance there. And I know as long as I get the marker float between those 2 trees, then I'm going to be on the money. I'm just going to wind it back. Until I get that telltale tap, tap, tap on the gravel. It's gone from, the silt's changed, it's gone really smooth. It was quite gloopy, it's gone glassy smooth. That means I know I'm getting close. It's a lovely area to fish that as well. There we go, the first knock. There we go, the faintest little rattle on the tip. There we go, dick, dick, dick. And that is right on the back of that spot. So I'm going to pop that up there. So at that point there, it looks to me as though I'm right next to the marker. So I've positioned the rowing boat perpendicular to the marker, and I've got the bait boat control with me, and I'm now going to drive the bait boat up against the clip, and I put the line in the clip when I thought the bait boat was absolutely at that distance to the marker, and unless I put the line under a lot of tension, then I'm not as far as the marker. The lead's towards the back of that boat there, so I'm at least a metre off that. So even at 60 yards, a bait boat is never as close to something as you think it is. Now, fishing an open water spot like this, it's not the end of the world. It's going to mean that I'm going to be further onto the hard stuff than I thought I was, and certainly not fishing the transition zone, certainly not fishing into the soft stuff either. So sometimes this can make a difference, and if that's the case, then this is a problem with this method. And the problem gets worse the greater the range. If you're doing this at 120 yards, then you could easily be 3 metres short of a spot just judging it by eye relative to the position of a marker float. So something to be aware of. So just judging bait boat range by eye, positioning it next to a marker float, can be a bit tricky. The best solution to this problem that I've found is to basically use the clip. So I've left that fishing rod in the clip where it was positioned, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to wind down the marker. I'm then going to position the marker in the clip with the float wound down in the bottom position. We're going to wind the marker around some distance sticks, and then we're going to wind the fishing rod around the distance sticks, and then we'll see this error between the two, and then we can correct for that error so that next time when I go to drive that bait boat out on position, as long as I drive it left and right spot on, tension up the line, and as soon as the tension has gone out of that line, I know that it's safe to drop that rig, and it will drop pretty much on the money. Right, so that's tight down to the marker, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to position the reels at the same distance, and then if I position the line in the clip at that point there, then I know the distance is transferable between the two marks. 1, 2, there we go. Right, let's wind that in. So I've already got two distance sticks set up here. That's the left hand one. Let's see how many wraps we got. 2, 3, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13, 13 and a half, 13 and a half 12-foot wraps. Right, let's grab the fishing rod and do exactly the same process and see where we are. 10, 11, 12, 13, there we go, 13. That's 13 and a quarter. So the differential that I'm seeing out on the water of about 1 metre is exactly what I'm seeing here. We're definitely 1 metre short. So if you want to get your fishing rod exactly where your marker rod is, just find the spot, wind the marker float down, then mark that distance, transfer that distance from the marker rod to the fishing rod, and then when you drive the bait boat out, it'll go beyond the spot, but then when the tension comes out of the line, drop it at that point, and that should land it exactly on the edge of the transition zone, which is what you're trying to achieve. So to get this on the money now, all I've got to do is take that out the clip, position it to the 13 and a half, and then put it in the clip there. So using the line clip exactly as you would if you weren't using a bait boat is a really good technique. I use this technique a lot when I'm night fishing because it makes precision positioning of rigs at night so much easier. An extension of this technique is that you can hold the rod so that you can swing the lead back down onto the spot. That's an option as well, but you have to be careful doing that because if you're dropping bait from the hopper when you do it, if you swing the lead back, you're going to get this situation where the lead lands and the rig lands away from where you're actually dropping the bait. So you're going to have a pile of bait and then you're going to have a rig. Now that might be what you want to create, but generally speaking I like the bait to go over the rig, and because I've investigated the spot with a marker, I'm very confident about what I'm fishing over. I don't actually need to feel the donk of that lead. So I'd much rather just drive it up to the clip, let the tension go out the line, and as soon as that tension goes, pop the trap open then, and the whole lot is going to descend, the rig's going to fly down, the bait's going to flutter down in a nice tight patch right over the rig, and that is exactly the scenario I'm looking to create. The next option I want to show you was actually invented here by some guests of ours, and it's super accurate. This is the sort of technique that you can use if you literally need to drop it on a dinner plate. Now, you don't always need to do that, but there are spots around this lake when it becomes really important. So we've got these large rock features, and in front of these rocks are these small feeding holes. And if you want to position a rig right in the base of one of these feeding holes, then you have to be super accurate, because the rocks are got these kind of vertical faces, and if you get it 10 centimeters wrong, you're going to be dropping a rig on the top of a rock, and it's completely going to ruin any chance of a bite that you've got. So when you need to be super accurate and get down to kind of desert place kind of level of accuracy, this next technique is worth mastering. So the bait boat's ready to rock. I've just loaded it up in the normal manner, so rig has gone in, bait has gone in, and then what I'm going to do, I've got my waders on, the bait boat's going to go in the water, and then I'm going to wade along to the spot that I want to fish. I'm going to find the rock with my prodding stick and with my feet, and then I'm going to drive the bait boat out towards me and position it exactly over the spot, and then drop it right on the money. So in this particular example, I'm going to a spot where I could have just brought this along with a bucket and just done it by hand. But if you imagine this scenario, if you're fishing a far margin and you can't walk around, there's no way to get the rig over other than to drive it all the way over the water to where you want to position it on the far margin. So what you do is you get the boat ready to go, you drive it away from you, then you walk all the way round to the far margin, get in the water there, find the spot exactly where you want to fish, and then the boat comes right next to you and basically delivers your rig right on the money. Now, I've got my right foot here, my right boot, on a rock, and I can show you this rock with this pole. So I've put the pole right onto my boot there, and if I position that pole just 10 centimeters forward, you can see it absolutely disappears. And we've got this situation where we've got a rock and then a hole in front of the rock, and we've got a change in height that way, and we've got this rapid change in height, and then it goes up again a bit there. So where I want to position the rig is just about 12 inches further forward. Just about there is the bottom of that hole. But in order to judge that, even if I was standing there and flying this bait boat in from the bank, it's really quite difficult to judge it to that level of accuracy. If this spot was a bit shallower, I could actually just use my boot and I wouldn't even need a prodding pole, but I'm going to run out of leg if I do that. Now, I know from this bait boat that the lead is there, so that is the position of where the lead is going to be. So this is the important bit. I've just positioned, that is the very front of the rock there. I know I want to be 12 inches in front of that rock, so as long as the pole is upright, the lead is going to drop from there, so it's going to be exactly right. My controller's sat here on top of the bait boat, so all I'm literally going to do is open the trap at that point there, dunk, that's away, and the rig has gone down there, and you can just about make out the fizz coming from those bubbles there. Hang on, I'm losing my bait boat with the remote, that's not cool. So that's how to use the combination of a set of waders, a prodding pole and a bait boat to fish just about any marginal spot that you can actually get in the water and gain access to, and do it with absolute precision, literally dropping it on a dime. A question I often get asked from visiting anglers to this water, well, surely getting in the water, in waders is going to spook the fish. This technique was something that I didn't invent. This was taught to me by visiting anglers, and it's extremely effective. So don't worry about spooking off the fish. I've watched guys, come here and catch time after time. We've seen takes, happen, within 30 minutes or half an hour of practicing this technique. So, if the fish are there and the fish are hungry, it's more important to get it absolutely on the money, because on a little marginal spot like this, it's so easy to get it a little bit off, and a little bit off is just not going to cut the mustard. A great technique if you want to fish to a far margin that you know is undercut and there aren't any kind of rocks or hazards to worry about, is you can do this. Drive the bait boat over to the far margin with the rig, bait all ready, set, ready to go. Rather than trying to guess how far the bait boat is from the margin, if you know that you want to be absolutely bang tight to it, drive the bait boat up and physically touch it on the margin. And you'll always be surprised how much farther you have to drive it before the bait boat actually does touch. Once the bait boat has touched, what I do is pick up the rod and then just put a little bit of tension in the line and literally just drag the bait boat back, as far as I want it. I might want to drop it absolutely bang tight to the margin, but if I want to drag it back a metre, then I'll literally just inch it back half a metre, and then by the time that I've activated the control, it's going to drop a metre away. It's a bit of a judgment call, but basically you're using the far margin as your reference marker. Another option that I've heard people mention is actually attaching kind of a bamboo cane, duct taping it to the bait boat, driving that out and touching the cane on the margin effectively, and the length of the cane gives you this offset, but I really wouldn't be very confident about using this technique. The cane's probably just going to fall off and get lost in the water anyway, which you really don't want. I've heard this technique being used with a bank stick, which is a really bad idea because you're just going to lose the bank stick. So personally, if I want to fish tight to a margin, then use the bait boat itself as a reference. You haven't got to mess around adding anything to it, and then just inch it back if that's what you want to do, and then drop it there. Now obviously it's important that you really understand what is going on in that margin. Get in the, if rules allow, get in the water in a set of chest waders so that you know what you're encountering, and then it's okay to fish that tight. I absolutely do not advocate driving a bait boat out to a far marginal snag and just judging, oh yeah, I'm next to the snag and dropping it. Really not a good idea at all, because you have no idea what is underneath the water. There's always more snag than you can see, trust me. So I don't use a bait boat to get really close unless I absolutely know that the margin is completely safe to fish to and that it's okay for my rig to be there. And if I get a take, then I'm going to stand a very good chance of landing it, because if you're fishing with a risk of actually losing the fish, quite frankly you shouldn't be dropping a rig there in the first place.